One of the most harrowing stories of the Tudor period, in the 16th century, was when Henry VIII's young teenage fifth wife, Catherine Howard, made her way to the execution scaffold inside the Tower of London. She was a very young lady, and she had been subjected to terrible treatment at the hands of many men throughout her short life, but she was implicated in a shocking scandal that allegedly saw her cheat on her husband Henry VIII with his close friend and courtier, Thomas Culpeper. She had more in common with him than her husband, the grotesque monarch, and following her head being cut off in one swing from the executioner's axe, Catherine Howard was then thrown into a roughly dug grave inside the chapel of St. Peter at Vincula. There were even efforts made to dissolve her remains as they were covered in lime during the burial process. But the grave of Catherine Howard was opened, and what they found was shocking, harrowing and disturbing. Welcome to the Fortress. To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe. The fifth wife of King Henry VIII entered the court of the king when she was just a very young teenager. She had been in the service for the household of Anne of Cleves, Henry's ill-fated fourth wife. But Henry noticed the young Catherine, and like he had done before with his other wives, he began to try and woo a potential new woman, whilst he was married to the woman they were serving. He hunted inside his wife's close circles, and Henry VIII described Catherine as the very jewel of womanhood, and at this time he was around at least 25 years older than the young girl, and others at court thought she was delightful and very well mannered. It was not long before Henry VIII married Catherine Howard on the 28th of July 1540. Incidentally, this was on the very same day that his former chief adviser Thomas Cromwell was executed by axe on Tower Hill, and the king regretted this for the rest of his life. Catherine was never coronated or crowned specifically as a queen, but she was given the title of Queen Consort, but she was far too young and naive to be involved in politics and important matters of state. The king and his fifth wife then went on their honeymoon, and they travelled throughout the country. However, at the time, the queen began to get closer to Thomas Culpeper, one of the king's closest friends and courtiers. The pair struck up a relationship behind the king's back, and the pair exchanged love letters, and Jane Boleyn, one of Catherine's most senior ladies, helped to arrange these meetings. This behaviour was discovered by Archbishop of Canterbury, Thomas Cranmer, who himself was a close friend of the king, and he discovered a brutal letter that secured the young queen's fate. This love letter discovered by Cranmer would help Catherine Howard be sent to her execution. Thomas Culpeper and another man, Derham, were executed for their involvement with the Queen. Culpeper was executed by axe, and Derham was hanged, drawn and quartered. It was said that on her way to the Tower of London that Catherine even passed under the heads of her former lovers that had been thrust high above London Bridge. Catherine Howard was taken to the Tower of London through Traitor's Gate, and on the 13th of February 1542, at 7 a.m, she was due to be executed. The night before her execution, she had the block brought to her chambers, so she could practice laying her head on it, so she stood the best chance of losing her head in one swift blow. She was as young as 19 when she was sent to the scaffold, and she was executed in one strike from the axe. But Catherine allegedly admitted that she deserved to die 1,000 deaths for the actions that she committed behind her husband's back, and she acknowledged her crimes. Her execution was very different compared to that of Anne Boleyn's, the second wife of Henry VIII. Catherine died by the axe, which was said to be less reliable than using the sword, like Anne experienced, and also the pomp and ceremony of Anne's execution was nowhere to be seen with Catherine. There was no black velvet mourning cloth on the scaffold, just hay to soak up the young queen's blood. There was little attention also paid to her burial, and her remains were collected on the scaffold. They were then thrown inside the Tower of London's chapel, in a grave that had been very quickly dug. There was no funeral service and little religious devotion, if any, said for her body, but Henry VIII ordered that her body should be covered in quicklime, to dissolve her remains quickly, to literally wipe her off the face of the earth. It was like Henry VIII was trying to erase her from history, and also his memory. Catherine's body was wrapped inside of a cloth, and this would have allowed her remains to decay quicker, as opposed to being put inside of a coffin. Henry did not want Catherine to be remembered, and he wanted to put his experiences with her behind him, and he certainly did not want a grave made for her. During the reign of Queen Victoria in the 19th century, the Queen visited the Tower of London, and she was very upset with the state of the Chapel of St. Peter ad Vincula. She did not see it as a place which was fit enough for the burials of queens, and because of this, significant work was done to the flooring, which was very uneven and broken, near to the high altar. Traditionally, inside of churches, people who were very significant were buried close to the altar, and the builders and archaeologists began their work lifting the floor of the tower's chapel. They found the remains of many Tudor figures and other prominent people who were executed upon Tower Hill, and also on Tower Green itself, literally metres away. On Tower Hill, the remains of the executed were then brought back into the tower for burial, and also found inside the crypt were thousands of other bones. Anne Boleyn's remains were located near to the high altar, and they were identified by the Queen's royal doctor. He commented that Anne had a little neck, and that she was roughly 5 feet 3 tall. But the archaeologists were searching for the remains of Catherine Howard, and they knew that they were going to be somewhere near to the front of the altar. She was a queen after all, and would have been interred near here, despite what the king wanted done with her body. The search turned up the remains of Jane Boleyn, who was executed straight after Catherine, and who had helped her cheat on the king, and it made sense that she was buried near to Catherine Howard. The specialists could not find the remains of Catherine Howard, but a very small collection of bones, which had been piled and had definitely been affected badly by the substance of quicklime, were located. These were found near to the body of Margaret Pole, the Countess of Salisbury, who was executed also by King Henry VIII. But these small quicklime-affected remains were then said to have been Catherine Howard's, but no DNA testing has ever been done on these, casting this conclusion into doubt. But the investigations did not tell if they belonged to a man or a woman, neither did they give an age estimation of those who that they belonged to. This could also have helped the case that they did belong to Catherine Howard if this had been done. As she was very young when she was executed, her bones may not have fully hardened to the full extent, and with this they would have decayed quicker than the remains of others who were older. But because of this, it is possible that the remains of Catherine Howard have been lost to time, and it's accepted by most historians that the plaque to her inside the Tower of London in front of the high altar is just a memorial stone and is not necessarily a grave marker, unlike the one of Anne Boleyn, which is near to this. There is no body that lies under this marker, and there may have just been a couple of bones, if any. However, Catherine Howard was, as a teenager, led to the Tower of London's scaffold for her execution, which was performed by axe. She was given the ultimate fate for cheating on the king, and she is considered today a horrific victim of the most notorious king ever to rule over England. She was used by her husband, and their marriage was a terrible indictment of the king's personality and nature. Thanks for watching. To support our channel, please make sure to subscribe, and once again, thank you so much for watching.